This video will show you how to replace the front steering knuckle on a Ford Transit-250. This is part of the front steering and suspension located behind your front wheel. Let's get into it. After the replacement of this part, you will want to get yourself a four-wheel alignment. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. Safely raise and support the front end of the vehicle so your front wheel's off the ground. Now once we've done that, we're going to be using a 21mm to remove all 5 of our lug nuts. Then we can remove that wheel. Let's set that aside. Now that we have the wheel off, we have a clear view of our front brake caliper. We need to push back our caliper pistons. Now I'm just going to do this easily using a small prying device directly in this area here. I want to press in between the caliper and the brake rotor. Just a gentle amount of pressure here. We really don't need much. Now once I do have some movement from this area, let's continue on with the caliper bracket mounting bolts along the back side here. Let's make our way to our 21mm caliper bracket mounting bolts. Quick inspection. Let's start it back in a couple threads. That'll prevent this from falling down while we continue on. Both of those bolts look the same. You don't need to worry about mixing them up. We'll take hold of that caliper. Go ahead and fully remove that bolt that we had started back in. We can remove that caliper. Let's set this aside temporarily. We're going to hang this so it's putting no pressure on our flex hose. Continuing on, we need to have a look in this area. Now we can see that we have 5 bolts right out in the open, but there's actually going to be 5 more bolts that are hidden deep inside of this area. You're going to have to carefully turn this while looking inside. Inside this area, you're going to find that you have 5 T50 Torx bolts that need to be removed. During the removal, we're going to be removing the wheel bearing from the knuckle. So now for this, we're going to have an extended T50 because we have to get deep in this area. There's one of our mounting bolts. Continue on to all others. Let's make our way all the way around here. So now at this point, there's really nothing holding this in place, holding the wheel bearing to our steering knuckle located behind it, an exception of rust. So we're just going to carefully tap on this and breaking it free. Keep in mind, this can be heavy. We don't want it to fall and potentially hurt you. We'll pull this out of place. With that out of the way, let's start removing our backing plate. The backing plate is held in place with 3 8mm headed mounting bolts. We're moving along to our ABS wheel speed sensor. Now looking in this area, we can see that we have an 8mm headed mounting bolt. Let's be careful not to break that bolt or the sensor itself. With the bolt out of position, let's continue on to the removal of the ABS wheel speed sensor. Now commonly you will find that this is stuck in place. You want to try to work it free. It should slide up and out of here. We want to be careful not to damage it in any way. See if I can take hold of this. I do have a little bit of movement. If you did not, you could carefully grab on with some pliers, give it a slight twist. If it doesn't feel like it breaks free, you want to be extremely careful not to damage it. See if we can lift on this here. We're sliding it up and out. Just a quick inspection of that ABS wheel speed sensor. We're going to set that aside. Let's move along to our outer tie rod end. We're going to separate this from our steering knuckle. We have a 21mm mounting nut along the top area here. Go ahead and remove that. Just a quick inspection of this. We're going to start it back on a couple threads. Now we need to break this free. This can typically be done by tapping with a hammer. We use some penetrant. A couple light taps here should help us. Separate this. Just a quick inspection of the outer tie rod to confirm there's no damage. If you see any, you're going to want to replace it. This looks fine, so we'll set it aside. Let's move along the bottom of the steering knuckle where we can see the ball joint connects to our lower control arm. We'll use a 30mm socket to remove our mounting nut. Let's prepare to separate that ball joint from the lower control arm now. For this, I'm using a ball joint separator. If you're intending on reusing that ball joint, we don't want to cause any damage. So I'm just going to use this ball joint separator. The end needs to go up against the stud. We have our two ears. Those will hook up along this area. Now, of course, we do want to make sure this stays together. You could try to hold it by hand, or you can apply light pressure using a small clamp if necessary. For my particular ball joint separator, I'm using a 17mm. I'm going to attempt to apply pressure. Once we have this broken free, we can remove our tool. Okay, get some movement there. Let's get the tool off of here. At this point, we're ready to start carefully pulling down on that control arm. We have it broken free from the ball joint. For this, I'm going to be using a long pry bar for leverage. I'll make my way through the port on that control arm. Let's see if we can pull this down. Now, as you can tell, I can flex this. I've separated it from my ball joint. I'm separating it and pulling it towards the side here. We can rest this into the fully upright position, remove the bar. Now we're making our way to the upper hardware, holding the knuckle in place to the strut. So I'm looking from along the front side of the steering knuckle. In this area, just below where our ABS wheel speed sensor wire connector is, we have a 17mm pinch bolt. This pinch bolt goes through our steering knuckle. You're going to find that there's a small slot here. And then on the far side, you have a second ear where the bolt makes its way through and it's actually screwed into. Use a 17mm to remove this bolt. There's our mounting bolt. A quick inspection, we'll set that aside. So now I'm pulling this away from the lower control arm and I need to start tapping on the knuckle. I want to break this free and drive it straight down and away from the front strut assembly. We can see where it separates right along here. Go ahead and use some penetrant as necessary. A few light taps with a hammer. Let's get this out of place. There it is, friend. Let's get this over to the bench. Now, prior to installation, let's make sure we clean and inspect our mounting area. We're up at the front strut first. We'll just use some parts cleaner and a clean rag. We'll give this a quick wipe. All the way down at the lower control arm, let's clean that ball joint mounting point here. That looks good. We'll use a little bit of anti-seize on the front strut here. This is going to help as a lubricant, bringing that knuckle up onto that front strut. This will also help prevent it from getting stuck in position. Should be able to take hold of that front strut. We're going to start wiggling this around. Now we do have to slide it up along the inboard side of the front strut. We can see we have an alignment tab. That needs to fit along the groove on that steering knuckle, straight through here. You may have to tap this up into position. You can use a rubber mallet as necessary. Just a couple light taps here. Now once you have that in position, we have our pinch bolt. We're going to slide it through that steering knuckle. You may have to make an adjustment of the height of the steering knuckle as necessary. We're going to start in that mounting bolt and we'll bottom it out. We'll torque this to 76 foot-pounds. Double check to make sure that's secured in place. At this point, we're going to carefully flex our lower control arm down. We'll bring that lower ball joint into position. You may need to adjust that stud. So we've got our lower ball joint mounting nut down here. We'll start this on. Once we're sure we started on by hand, it's not cross-threaded, let's snug it up. The torque for this will be 159 foot-pounds. Now it's time for the ABS wheel speed sensor. We're going to carefully bring this down into our steering knuckle. Of course, we want to make sure that we've cleaned and inspected this port. the sensor itself should line up, slide straight in without very much pressure at all. After that, we have our 8mm headed mounting bolt. We'll line up the port, start this in by hand, and snug it up. It's snug. I'm going to torque that to 97 inch-pounds. It's not very much. We don't want to break the bolt into our steering knuckle. Double check to make sure your ABS wheel speed sensor is properly secured in place. Now it's time to install that backing plate. As far as the backing plate mounting area, I like to use some anti-seize on each one of my 3 ports. Let's get that backing plate in place. We'll make sure we have it in the proper orientation. We need to make sure that we can see our caliper bracket ears. Once we have it in the proper placement, we can start in each of our 3 mounting bolts and we'll bottom them out. We're not tightening any of these until all 3 of them are started in, just in case we have to maneuver this backing plate around at all. The torque for each of these will be 89 inch-pounds. Let's make our way to that tie rod end. We're going to connect this into this area. Start on our 21mm mounting nut. Now when we go to tighten this, you might find that the tie rod stud spins on you. If that's the case, carefully apply some light upward pressure, holding the stud in place to the steering knuckle. So I've got my pry bar under here. We're going to snug this up and torque it to 59 foot-pounds. Now we can get our wheel bearing and brake rotor in place. We want to make sure we have our bolts cleaned. We'll have some thread locker. Let's go ahead and start in each of these mounting bolts once we have that wheel bearing in place. Now before we get this in place, let's have a quick look along the back side. We're looking at the wheel bearing flange. Now if you were looking at the flange itself, you can see that it does have ears where the bolts go through, and if you could see the brake rotor through that, you can see that we have ports for our mounting bolts. While we have it in this position, let's just attempt to align those as close as possible, and we can get this in position on the steering knuckle. As I bring this up, I'm attempting to match this up with the knuckle. Now we're going to have to hold this in place. Keep in mind it can be heavy. Let's start in each of those mounting bolts, and then we'll carefully bottom them out. Using my T50. My adapter does fall out of my socket. That's okay. Now we'll just do the same for all others. Let's bottom this out and torque it to 46 foot-pounds. Now when we snug these up, let's go crisscross here. We're going to form a star. Get this in place. Now when we bring this into position, we need to pay attention to our flex hose, confirming it's not twisted in a way that could restrict brake fluid flow. Once you've confirmed that, we'll continue on with our 2 caliper bracket bolts. Start them in, snug them up. We'll torque each of these to 202 foot-pounds. Once you have the wheel in place, go ahead and start on all 5 of your 21mm lug nuts. You're going to bottom them out in a crisscross manner. Once you have the wheel back on the ground, torque each one of the lug nuts to 148 foot-pounds. Now I have the wheel back on the ground. Let's go ahead and torque each one of our lug nuts to that 148 foot-pounds. torqued. Okay, friend, we showed you the installation of your front steering knuckle. Now the next thing we need to do is make our way into the passenger compartment. You want to make sure you pump up that brake pedal till it's nice and firm. You're going to take your vehicle for a road test and get yourself a four-wheel alignment. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.